Now, credit ratings agency Moody's says it expects mortgage defaults to rise over the rest of the year and into next year. Moody's expects a modest increase in the number of people getting behind in their mortgage as high debt levels and higher interest rates put pressure on home loan borrowers. Last week we saw more evidence of falling home prices across most capital cities. And on the weekend, auction clearance rates fell in Melbourne on so-called Super Saturday. Joining us to discuss the property market is Andrew Wilson, Chief Economist at My Housing Market. Thanks for joining us. So what did we see on Super Saturday and why is it so important?
Well, Super Saturday wasn't so super for most sellers. Of course, it's the Saturday, the first real test for the spring housing market. Sellers avoiding the clash with the grand finals next weekend. Of course, school holidays are starting as well. We had 200 more auctions in Sydney and 200 more in Melbourne compared to the previous weekend. The numbers are still well down on where they were a year ago. Auction numbers this year down around about 12% in Sydney and down 8% in Melbourne. And clearance rates, well, they're certainly well down compared to a year ago. Sydney picked up a little bit on the weekend. We had a 56% clearance rate compared to the previous weekend where we had just 53%, which was a 2-month low. And in Melbourne, clearance rates fell to the second lowest for the year and a very low result for Melbourne at just over 53%. And that Melbourne market's really seemed to have hit the wall over the last few weekends, had a good start to spring. The capital city markets, we had a big surge in auction listings in Canberra, over 100 listings there, but clearance rates also were down in Canberra, picked up a little bit in Adelaide and were down in Brisbane. So it really is a very benign spring selling season so far this year, and probably not the type of bounce that sellers typically look for at this time of the year.
And the value of properties sold at auction is also down significantly.
Well, I think that's
a year ago.
Yeah, and that's a stat we're sort of ignoring at the moment. We've got lower listing numbers and lower clearance rates, and that means the actual number of sales going through the system is considerably lower than a year ago, and that means the actual volume of property value that's going through the system is well down, and that of course has implications for the industry that does use volumes, sale volumes as a mark of their profitability, and also for governments, of course, that gather stamp duty from the value of sales. So I think this is something that's got some legs to it in terms of the impact of this much quieter housing market that we're in at the moment.
So what sort of impact are we seeing on the industry? I presume a lot of layoffs.
Well, I think we'll see that, and I'm already seeing some early signs of that. I think that will grow through the spring period. This is traditionally a period where agents and the industry do tend to make their highest levels of profits, and it's not just happening this year with much lower volumes going through the system, and I think this is going to be a sobering time for the industry. We talk a lot about house price movements, which are really down marginally compared to a year ago, but I think the real impact will be on the industry with this this significant downturn in terms of the volume and value of properties sold at the moment.
So how much more do you expect house prices to fall? Are we talking about a house price crash, just given that the debt levels of Australian households are very high?
Yeah, now look, we'd need higher interest rates, significantly higher interest rates to really push prices down. We're in for this very flat period of house price growth. I believe it'll be 1% up or down depending on local circumstances, and it's something I think Australian property owners are going to have to get used to, is not having that wave of higher and lower prices, those great capital growth through the upswings of the cycle in the future. Is going to be much flatter for much longer, and of course that just reflects where interest rates are at the moment and likely to stay for the foreseeable future.
Okay, Andrew Wilson from My Housing Market. It's so bad news for sellers but good news for buyers, perhaps.
Thank you, sir.